5 immortal words. What's your favorite scary movie? In 1996, the horror genre needed a giant jolt of adrenaline, and Wes Craven's Scream was the film to do it. A scary, funny, wildly entertaining horror film with an amazing script, a genius director, and a perfect cast, all coming together at the right place at the right time. In this video, I'm going to celebrate the 25th anniversary of one of my favorite movies of all time by counting down the 25 reasons why I love Scream. I'll be revealing major spoilers along the way, so only watch this video if you've seen the film. Here we go. Number 1. Kevin Williamson's screenplay. Any great film starts with a great screenplay, and Williamson's is one of a kind, so masterfully blending together scares and humor with a fast pace, a compelling central mystery, and fully realized characters. It's hard to believe he wrote his script in a single weekend, that the movie that reached the screen is more or less his first draft. Williamson has said he wrote Scream because it was a film he wanted to watch. And what a thrill it must have been for him to see what his little weekend script would eventually become.
I don't think we've seen a film like this in a long time. I mean, when was the last time you saw a really scary movie?
Number 2. Wes Craven's direction. Many directors were considered for Scream, including Robert Rodriguez, Sam Raimi, and George Romero, but nobody at the time could have handled this material as deftly as Wes Craven did. After a string of box office failures like Vampire in Brooklyn and the underrated New Nightmare, Craven desperately needed a hit, and this was the film to do it. Other directors might have leaned too heavily into the comedy, but Craven understood how to find the balance between the funny and the scary, and his participation helped secure so many incredible talents in the cast and crew. Number 3. Mark Irwin's cinematography. I've always loved the visual look of Scream, the way the camera follows the characters, speeds up and slows down in moments of tension, and offers shadows and darkness to always keep the audience on their toes. Cinematographer Mark Irwin got his start working for David Cronenberg, and although he would go on to work on more comedies and thrillers, the touch he gives to Scream is vital to the film's success. The visuals always complementing the narrative and never pulling us out of it. The way he handles the opening sequence is especially skillful, keeping the camera close to Casey Becker at almost all times to set up the idea that maybe she'll be the film's hero and not one of the victims. Number 4. The editing by Patrick Lussier. The editing of Scream is top-notch too. Lussier always moving the story along at the right pace, allowing those quiet moments of reflection to land for the viewer while he speeds us towards the next kill scene. He understands when we should stay put on a single shot, like when the camera tracks along with the characters, and when the cuts need to be sped up to heighten the tension, like during Randy's horror movie rules monologue.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Lussier would go on to edit Scream 2 and Scream 3 for Craven as well, and the invisible art to his editing has played an important role in making the franchise what it is. Number 5. The score by Marco Beltrami. Blend together everything I've discussed so far, and Scream still wouldn't even be close to what it turned out to be without the spooky, often heart-pounding score by Marco Beltrami.
He's gonna try and kill me!
Remarkably, this was his first score for a feature film. His work was discovered by Craven's assistant, and Beltrami auditioned for the job by scoring the opening sequence.
I did what I could. I'd never seen a horror movie. To me, it was the scariest thing watching, this girl get chased around, and so I scored it like I was in her shoes.
It feels like the work of a composer with 20 features behind him, always enhancing the emotion and the suspense of every scene. Number 6. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. The best final girl there's ever been, next to Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode, Sidney Prescott has had a fascinating journey over the course of 5 Scream films. And in the 1996 original, her arc is a great one, going from a naive innocent typing on her bedroom computer to a confident warrior who puts down the killer without a moment's hesitation.
Not in my movie.
Campbell fills every moment with truth and authenticity, and her character's journey more than any others is the one that keeps us coming back for more. Number 7. Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers. She was absolutely made for this role, but it makes sense at the time that Courtney Cox wouldn't have been the first choice necessarily to play Gale Weathers in Scream. She was best known, of course, as Monica on Friends, and so did it make sense to pair her with another actress, Campbell, who was also on a hit TV show, Party of Five. Cox fought for this role for an important reason. She wanted to play a bitch.
Kenny?
Yeah?
I know that you're about 50 pounds overweight, but when I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now!
And her character gives the film a necessary antagonist that provides conflict and cynicism, not to mention that all-important punch to the face.
I'll send you a copy.
Before she, like Sydney, evolves into someone by the end we never could have expected. Number 8. David Arquette as Dewey Riley. The role of Dewey was written as hunky in the script, and thus the more slender Arquette wasn't the obvious choice for the role. He went in to read for Billy, but he approached Craven asking if he could read for Dewey, feeling he was better suited for it. Here was thankfully a case of someone speaking up at the right time, because if Arquette had hung his head in shame and left the audition room having failed his reading for Billy, who knows what the role of Dewey would have looked like in this movie or the sequels.
What did Mama tell you? When I wear this badge, you treat me like a man of the law.
Arquette's Dewey is so kind-hearted and lovable, and a fighter when he needs to be. His character's been another interesting one to follow over the course of 5 films. Number 9. Jamie Kennedy as Randy Meeks. Of the supporting characters in Scream, one of the most memorable is Randy Meeks, played with great humor and energy by Jamie Kennedy.
Did you really put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard that they found her liver in the mailbox next to her spleen and her pancreas.
This is the horror movie nerd of the group, and noticeably the only friend without a significant other. He delivers the classic monologue about the rules of a horror movie any fan of the genre knows by heart. Randy brings a necessary warmth to the proceedings, especially with the constantly growing terror, and Kennedy is just excellent in the role. Number 10. The rest of the cast. Everybody in this ensemble is terrific, including Skeet Ulrich as Billy, who balances sweetness with a brooding sensibility, making it difficult for the viewer to suspect him as the killer the first time around. There's Rose McGowan as the sassy best friend Tatum, who gets one of the most memorable kill scenes in the movie. And there's Matthew Lillard as Stu, who Kevin Williamson himself admitted was the most underwritten major role in the film.
Kidding me? Look at this place. It's like Christmas.
But Lillard makes it his own, his funny quips and mannerisms also making for a surprise reveal as the killer in the end. Also memorable are W. Earl Brown as Gale's cameraman Kenny, Liev Schreiber in his Blink or You'll Miss Him cameos Cotton Weary, Henry Winkler as the school principal, and Roger L. Jackson, so terrifying as the voice of Ghostface. And then, of course, there's number 11, Drew Barrymore as Casey Becker. Barrymore was originally attached to play Sydney, and it wasn't until later that she had the revelation that she should play Casey instead.
And I thought, what if I die, and then it'll be like all bets are off, anybody could get killed in this movie, and we would take away that sort of cliche safety net of the girl always gets away.
She would have been good as Sydney, but Casey was the role she was meant to play. So brilliant in her brief amount of screen time, going from flirtatious to concerned to terrified to heart-wrenching acceptance of her situation. It's a stunning performance that never leaves you, even when she's off screen for the remainder of the film. This may be Neve Campbell's movie, but the ghost of Drew hangs over every frame. And that leads us to number 12, the opening sequence. Yes, Barrymore is amazing in those opening few minutes, but it's more than her performance that makes it one of the most iconic sequences in horror film history. There's the camera movement, the editing, the music, the incredible dialogue that never gets better than this.
Freddy, that's right. I like that movie. It was scary.
Wow, well, the first one was, but the rest sucked.
And the movie trivia game, which makes participants out of all of us.
Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
But it's in the unsettling moment when the realization sets in for Casey that she isn't going to make it that brings the sequence its power. A harsh truth for the viewer that no character in this movie is ever safe. The mother's scream at the end is always so upsetting, and that shot of Casey's gutted body hanging from a tree is still shocking to this day. Number 13, the horror movie references. Another fun part of watching Scream is counting all the references to other horror films.
What's that werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling, horror, straight ahead.
In the opening sequence alone, the characters talk about major slasher flicks like Friday the 13th and Craven's own A Nightmare on Elm Street, and throughout the rest of the narrative, any film buff is in pure bliss as they spot all the references. There's Candyman, Prom Night, The Silence of the Lambs, The Exorcist, and I love how Williamson reveals Billy as one of the two killers by having him refer to both Psycho and Carrie.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
But the other horror film reference throughout Scream that's used best in the narrative is number 14, John Carpenter's Halloween. It's not just mentioned in dialogue once or twice like so many other movies, or like Tatum's confusing Wes Craven with John Carpenter.
Duck other said, you're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick or something.
Which means Wes Craven himself exists in the Scream universe. Let that sink in for a second. I love how John Carpenter's Halloween, my all-time favorite horror film, plays an important role in Scream's plot. First, it's used to build up Casey's confidence at the beginning and her thinking she's good at movie trivia. Then it's used to set up Randy's monologue about the rules of a scary movie. As Dewey walks through the house, it's used as an element of suspense. Carpenter's terrifying score blasting in the background. And it's even used to take down Billy at the end, when he's distracted for a pivotal second to watch Halloween on the TV, giving Sidney the moment she needs to strike him down. Few films have used another movie for its narrative in the massively successful way Scream uses Halloween. Number 15, the cameos. Beyond all the film references, Scream has a few notable cameos too, my favorites being Linda Blair and director Craven. Blair is of course best known for her performance in The Exorcist, so it would make sense that she would have an appearance somewhere in Scream, briefly showing up as a reporter.
So how does it feel to be almost brutally butchered?
Hey, now leave her alone.
People want to know. They have a right to know.
She also worked with Craven on one of his early TV movies, Stranger in Our House, which makes her cameo all the sweeter. Craven has the silliest cameo in the movie as the janitor Fred, wearing the sweater and all, but it provides a needed moment of humor right before the next surprising kill scene. Number 16, the costumes. The costume design by Cynthia Bergstrom is terrific in Scream, the clothes always giving us a clue as to what the major characters are all about, especially Gale Weathers' lime green suit that showcases her tackiness and her confidence. Sidney's outfits are always simple and modest, while Tatum often shows a little too much. And there's the Ghostface costume too, which like Michael's mask in Halloween, is so important to Scream's ongoing legacy. Williamson didn't specify what Ghostface looked like in the screenplay, and it was while location scouting that producer Marianne Maddalena discovered the mask hanging from a post. It's practical for the films because it covers the entire body, making it clear anyone could be behind the costume, and it also has a genuine eeriness to it. The design for the killer, one of the best in horror movie history. Number 17, the backstory. If all Scream had going for it was the humor and the thrills that lead us to the tension-filled finale, that would have been enough. But something I always admire about the original film is the backstory we get about Maureen Prescott, and how her grisly death hangs over Sidney as the new series of murders begin in Woodsboro. It might be a little easy to have the killing of Maureen be exactly at the 1-year anniversary.
No, it's been a year.
Tomorrow. 1 year tomorrow.
But I've always believed it's her mother's death that brings the strength out in Sidney in Scream's second half, when she recognizes her own life is in danger. She goes berserk on Stu and Billy at the end in self-defense, but she's also doing it to honor her mother. Number 18, the whodunit. In addition to the backstory, the other aspect of Scream and its sequels that works tremendously well is the whodunit aspect, which allows us to keep guessing the identity of the killer or killers as we're scared out of our wits at the same time. Unlike Halloween, when we know exactly who is behind the mask, in each Scream movie we're always guessing who the murderer could be. Sometimes the reveal isn't great. I'm looking at you, Scream 3. But almost always the reveal makes perfect sense. And that's especially the case in the 1996 original. Billy and Stu's friendship always seems a bit off, the way they interact with Randy at the video store, setting up the menace to come. Number 19, the humor. The scariest horror films need humor to at least occasionally relieve the viewer of all the tension they have bottled up inside. Think of Roy Scheider's famous line in Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Or Kathy Bates' outbursts in Misery.
He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car!
It can't be constant, nerve-wracking suspense all the time. And what Craven and Williamson do so well in Scream is give you lots of comedy in between the scares that build character and add texture to the story. I love all of Randy's humorous lines in the moments he's most afraid.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
and Cox's amazing line deliveries that make you smile every time.
Guess I remember the safety that time, you bastard.
And there's the irony of those moments when characters are giving advice to people in other movies they should be following at the exact same moment. Think of Jamie Kennedy literally saying to a TV screen, "Jamie, look behind you," when there's a killer right behind him. If Craven had taken this material too seriously, I don't believe the film would be the classic it is today. Number 20, the scares. Scream also wouldn't be a classic today if Craven or another director had made the film too funny and not made it a genuine thrill ride with lots of terror and suspense. The film is packed with jump scares, like Ghostface crashing through the window at the beginning, being behind the door in the principal's office, appearing in front of the news van truck, and popping up behind Sidney in the car. Craven knows how to scare the viewer, like he did in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and he doesn't back down in that regard in Scream. Number 21, the kill scenes. If the scare scenes work well in Scream, the kill scenes work even better. Every one of them memorable in specific ways, never forgettable or cliche. There's the hanging of Casey from a tree, Tatum's neck breaking in the garage door, a TV playing Halloween, falling onto Stu. Even with the principal's death scene, which is kind of routine, there's an unusual close-up at the end, Ghostface reflected in his eye. And something important Craven allows that not every horror director does is letting the audience watch a character reflect on their circumstances in the seconds before they die. Think of Kenny when he looks at Sidney. Think of the principal when he looks up at Ghostface. These are not expendable characters, even the minor ones. Craven makes us care about them. Number 22, the efficiency. I have watched Scream probably 50 times or more in the last 25 years, and something that never fails for me is the movie's great efficiency. It just plugs along with such confidence and clarity, the story constantly surprising you, while the wit of the dialogue and complexity of the characters and tension from the terror always keeping you within its grip. This is that rare movie that's never boring, never staying in any one scene for too long. It has a fast pace, but not too fast. The film having the occasional necessary quiet moment that gives it emotional weight.
Keep lying to myself about who my mom was.
It's a film that never gets old, that even with all its movie references and a scene at a video store, has never become dated. Scream has a firm, joyous efficiency to its narrative I'm always amazed by. Number 23, the last scene. Courtney Cox only had a couple of takes to nail her closing monologue at the end of Scream that shows Gail doing what she does best, talking into a news camera, her values in a whole new place, potentially, as she walks toward the murder house, the camera panning to a glorious sunrise that seems to promise a better tomorrow for its surviving characters. One of my biggest pet peeves is the movie lingering for far too long at the end, and Scream thankfully avoids that. Sidney shooting and killing Billy, then attending to her wounded father. We get Gail summarizing directly to us the events that have occurred.
Hi, this is Gail Weathers with an exclusive eyewitness account of this amazing breaking story.
And then that's it. The movie's over, the way it should be. There's very little fat in Scream. Patrick Lussier is editing lean and mean throughout, and that's definitely the case with the last scene. Number 24, the sequels. Something I love about Scream is that the movie proved to be successful enough to give us sequels. Films that have their highs and their lows, but with a unique stamp on all horror movie franchises. The core trio has survived all the way to a fifth movie. Even Laurie Strode was disposed of in Halloween Resurrection, but such has not been the case for Dewey, Gale, or Sidney, who we've gotten to see evolve as characters in one sequel after another. The most fascinating character to follow has absolutely been Sidney, who tried to move on with her life in Scream 2, then became a hermit for most of Scream 3, and then took full control of her situation in Scream 4, where at the end she delivered my favorite line of any of the sequels.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
And now with Scream 5, it's clear these characters and this franchise will continue to stay strong for decades to come. Number 25, the legacy. No matter your feelings about the sequels, nothing will ever touch the perfection of the 1996 original, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Horror was a complete dead zone in the mid-1990s, and Scream brought it back, making the genre popular again and pushing it in a brand new direction into the 2000s and beyond. The legacy of Scream will never be diminished, no matter what detours the genre takes in the years to come. This is one of my all-time favorites, a modern classic. What a thrill it has been to take you through everything I adore about a movie that will always hold a special place in my heart. The 25 Reasons Why I Love Wes Craven's iconic masterpiece, Scream. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you love about Scream. Is there anything you would add to my list? See you next time.